This episode of the PC Perspective Podcast is brought to you by VideoBlocks.com. Stop overpaying for stock media that's underwhelming. VideoBlocks is an affordable, subscription-based site that gives you unlimited access to over 100,000 HD video clips, After Effects templates, and motion backgrounds. Get your 7-day free trial at VideoBlocks.com/promo/PCPer.
Welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is podcast number 364, being recorded August 26th, 2015. I'm Alan Malventano.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
I'm Sebastian Peak.
Yep, we kind of threw the boss out. He's off covering some stuff that we probably can't talk about just yet.
We could see the top of everyone's head tonight. I don't know if this is good or bad.
Yeah, we don't have Ryan doing this number like he was before. So we're going to talk about some news and some reviews and some stuff. But before that, let's pimp out the various things we need to pimp out on the list here. You can find this podcast and a bunch of prior podcasts and show notes and everything else at podcast@pcpro.com. pcpro.com/podcast. The email for us is podcast@pcpro.com if you want to email us about your papers or whatever. That's that voicemail that we don't use anymore, unfortunately. Might need to reopen that so we can have the old ladies asking us about the papers. Twitter.com/Ryan Shrout for the boss. Twitter.com/PCPer for pretty much all of us. And then we'll throw the other Twitter ones out towards the end for all the other guys. You can subscribe to our spam list. He keeps calling it spam list in the show notes. So we have a mailing list to let you know when we're about to record a live show. You put your name in there, you put your email in there, and it just automatically adds you to the list. And we put out a blast, a little bit, about an hour or so-ish, before we record something big. Or if we have some other big event coming, we might give you more of a heads-up notice than that, like something that's wasn't on the schedule. That's all we use it for, and we will not spam you other than for that reason. So keep that in mind before you subscribe to it. All right. Wow, Jeremy, I guess we're just going to start and just let you start talking. And I will
All right.
And I will Vanna for you accordingly.
Considering how much work that Lenny and the gang puts into it, it's more than worth mentioning. Coming up this Saturday is the 11th Fragging Frogs VLAN. We already have an obnoxious amount of people that have signed up for it. And as always, we are giving away a ridiculous amount of prizes. If you want to win, you have to post to the thread that's linked in the show notes and join us on the TeamSpeak server. And Lenny will be calling out names the whole time. We've got AMD in the past. We've had Epic. We've had Bohemia Entertainment. We've had a lot of different sponsors. And regardless of whether you win or not, you're going to have a great time because there is a huge amount of games that we'll be playing up to and including the first appearance of Rocket Cars because that just came out. So if you can, sign up for the forums, hang out with the Fragging Frogs on a regular occasion, but if you just want to figure out what it's all about, grab yourself a whole bunch of your favorite drink, a bunch of snacks, and show up at 10 p.m. or 10 a.m. Eastern on Saturday and start fragging.
So that Rocket League thing, or Rocket Cars, pretty much guarantees that Ryan should make an appearance.
Oh, you'd think?
He's kind of addicted to that game. Just saying.
I've yet to play it.
So I haven't either.
If you value any of your free time, don't play it. Anyway. All right, so that one's down. All right, well, I guess I'll get into the week in review here. First up, that's a monitor review that I did not do. I am very happy.
That kind of rhymed.
I am very, very happy about this. Sebastian is my savior with the ASUS PB258Q frameless 25-inch WQHD IPS monitor.
Yep, kind of a weird size, 25 inches. There's a couple of these sub 27-inch WQHD monitors I've seen. This was the first one. I was looking for a new monitor a while back, and I brought this up on the podcast a while ago, but I finally got around to putting a review together. Just kind of a quickie, but it's a nicely made monitor. It's under $400. It seems to go for about $377. on Amazon and other retailers. And it's IPS, the full 1440p display. It claims to have 100% sRGB coverage, so a decent backlight. And really good viewing angles, I noticed from this thing. Has a fully adjustable stand. The screen rotates, tilt, height adjustment. And it comes with a bunch of accessories. If you're watching the video, you can see it has every type of video cable included, HDMI, DisplayPort, VGA. So it's ready to go right out of the box. The out-of-the-box calibration actually looked pretty good too. But the kind of the selling point that ASUS uses for this, besides the more compact size, is what they call a frameless monitor.
It lies like a push-up bra.
It does. So I mean, it looks great, and when it's turned off, it's fantastic. I took most of the pictures with the display turned off. It looks so good because it's like a millimeter plastic frame around this thing. But when you turn it on, you see that there's still that internal LCD frame. It's about 1/4 of an inch on all sides.
Where I'm looking for the first picture of what the display on. Oh, well, there's color.
I think it's at the bottom.
Ooh, look at that! Look at that color shift.
It's just black.
Boo-da-doop, boo-da-doop.
Okay.
Color shift.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, so it's got about the average bezel for a small bezel display, like one of the new Samsung TVs that goes almost all the way to the edge of the TV. But it's got that internal frame. It's just masked out with that matte finish plastic cover that's over the screen.
Just the front, just the front element of the display, just kind of extends,
and
right?
that extends past the frame, and they mask it out nicely, and it's kind of edge to edge. But I didn't buy it for that purpose, so I didn't really care. It really is a very good looking display that calibrates pretty well. It didn't have the best results, and I didn't get into really analyzing the color performance of this thing, and I wasn't using professional grade software. I just did a quick calibration with my data color software. But I noticed that I got wildly different calibration results at different brightness levels. So it tells me that there's not, that maybe the backlight at 50% produced a different calibration than the backlight at the recommended 20%, because it wanted to do it at 120.
Was it shooting for a specific, like, candelas per square or whatever?
It was shooting for 120.
Yeah.
And I know that we do a lot of testing at like 180 lux on screens at the site. I didn't put it up that high. I had it in a pretty dim room. But when I did push it up to about 50% backlight, because 120 on this thing was only 20 to 21% backlight.
Right.
And this thing at 50% calibrated a little bit more accurately, but it was a little all over the map. It wasn't the best performance I've ever seen, but it looked really good. And considering this is less than $400 for a display that has really good viewing angles and did really have the 100% sRGB coverage, I thought it calibrated very nicely. Looked pretty natural. So if you're looking for a monitor and it's only 60 hertz, so it's not going to give you any variable refresh rate. It's not high refresh, but it's a fully adjustable monitor that seems very well made. I've been using it every day since I bought it, and I've had it for, I think, since the beginning of June now. So just kind of a very good quality daily driver monitor that looks nice on a desk. Doesn't take up too much space.
All right, cool. Next up, Qualcomm Hexagon 680 DSP, which is a Snapdragon 820 part. Is that how that works?
So the Snapdragon 820 is the latest announced Snapdragon CPU, APU, whatever you want to call it. SoC, I guess, would be the best descriptor of this. That is their latest, newest. It's got the Adreno 530 graphics, the new Cryo CPU, which is their custom-made 64-bit ARM V8 ISA-based CPU. So the Hexagon 680 DSP is, as far as I know, I mean, Jeremy, did you read any of this?
I took a quick look at it just because I'm sort of familiar with it through the Blackberries, as well as more than a couple of...
The DSP is a specialized portion that does certain workloads. It will offload from the GPU and the CPU, and certain things it can do really, really well. And in previous parts, it helped with some encoding. In this, it does quite a few more things. I think the biggest that they're pushing is what, in terms of image quality stuff. So, say for low light pictures and video, on the fly, it will brighten areas, keep the other areas dark, sharpen anything that has to do with photos or videos. This probably is going to be moving along.
So it sounds like this is for like the kind of tech you see in phones where they're able to do a bunch of shots rapid succession, or you know, because you need a hardware DSP to be able to do all the image processing on the fly like that, right? That's kind of like what Apple was doing with the iPhones.
It's another portion of the chip that it's, you know, some things are probably going to leverage the GPU, but it's going to help out in areas where the GPU obviously is not as good. Another thing, I guess, that it helps with communication with the modem. I'm not entirely sure how it does that, aids cellular modem and communication throughput. So as we're getting to, you know, higher and higher, you know, throughput, I mean, 4G goes pretty dang fast. I mean, we're seeing 30 megabit and above that in some areas that are not, you know, totally oversaturated with cell phones. And there's, you know, only kind of so much fabric that that you can utilize in terms of bandwidth on these SoCs, and so apparently this also helps it. Also, there's an area called the low power island, and this shifts how always-on sensors can communicate with the operating system. So instead of having your CPU chugging through a bunch of cycles, you've got this lower power area that handles the sensor stuff. So say, for instance, you've got a cell phone and it's got a light sensor on there that's always on, that tells you when you turn it on how bright your screen should be for the environment. That's something you don't want to waste a lot of power on, but it's kind of important to be able to get the screen up and at the brightness level you need to be able to see on like a sunny day, or not get blinded in the middle of the night without a moon. Anything else you've picked up through this, Jeremy?
I mean, that's mostly it, is that you're going to be seeing better picture taking in lousy conditions. You're going to see higher performance overall. And from what they're showing, you're going to see a lot longer battery life, or a smaller battery giving you the same amount of life. It seems like it takes them forever to come out with stuff, but when they do, it's usually a noticeable improvement.
I think it's interesting that they have that compute DSP that it can work in tandem with the actual, like, the radio, the cellular radio. That's an interesting point to me, because the more DSP horsepower you have behind a radio, like any radio for communication like that, it will either give you more speed, or it will give you better better handling of noisy environments, right? That's where DSPs are really strong. So if you're, you might have, like, if you have this particular part in your phone and you're at something like CES where there's a whole crap load of phones around you and everybody's trying to do stuff all at once, stronger DSP kind of prevails in that situation. Like, it'll be able to, the more horsepower you have, the more you can kind of get signals out of, like, a mess of other stuff that's going on at the same time. So, just might increase just the overall performance of, like, the cellular performance of phones that are using that. So it's
and something else about this is that essentially it's three different parts on the chip. The compute DSP, it handles what's called HVX, or vector extensions coprocessor, and that's the part that does low power compute, audio, voice, image, video processing, and computer vision. That's something that potentially they're gonna compete with Intel. What's their 3D vision thing called again?
RealSense?
Yeah.
RealSense. Yeah, so I'm kind of curious if Qualcomm does that. Then, of course, the second is the low power island, and then the third is the cellular and the modem DSP.
One cool thing about sort of the low power island he was talking about, I'll probably butcher this mostly, but after he got off the call, he thought this was an interesting point. Whereas Apple has moved a lot of those functions off to a separate coprocessor in the M6 or the M8 or whatever it is
M8,
in this generation. He said that Qualcomm found that they could have more power savings by putting it on the DSP in a low power island instead of halting the CPU and bringing it back up when there was action on the coprocessor to act on.
Makes sense.
So they found a happy middle ground there where it was faster and still low power.
Yeah, and I mean, it's on the same chip, so it's not like you're trying to talk to another chip and figure out, hey, what happened while I was asleep, and do all that communicating as soon as you try to come out of standby. Yeah, that's interesting. All right, cool. So if you want much more technical detail on this, feel free to hit the Qualcomm article that Ryan put up. All right, that knocks out that guy. Any other, anything else on this guy before we move on? Bueller?
No further.
No further questions, Your Honor. All right. Next up, Nixeus View, 24-inch, 144 hertz TN, 30 to 144 hertz FreeSync display review. This one we did in-house here. We first heard about this panel during the issues and the massive forum threads like overclock.net that resulted from the initial round of FreeSync panels that had overdrive that wasn't working. And one of the guys from Nixeus popped into that thread and was, speaking on behalf of, hey, like, we can get it working. Like, we're not shipping a panel yet, but we got it working. Like, kind of from the standpoint of, we don't understand why the other guys aren't doing it because we're able to do it, right? Like, we see it working here in-house on this panel that that we're not shipping yet. So that led to some discussions with them off to the side, and then that led to, hey, now the panel's out, and we got a sample to test. Panel's shipping right now. It was showing in stock as of yesterday when we published a review on it. So this is basically just 24-inch 1080p TN panel. It's in that respect, it's just like every other kind of small TN panel. It does take you back a little bit because what we've been seeing for the past couple of years is 1440p or higher, 4K, 27-inch, maybe even larger panels in G-Sync and FreeSync flavors. This one is FreeSync, but it's very impressive that Nixeus has been able to produce a panel, regardless of size, that has, I would argue, the full range, right? Yes, it doesn't go less than 30. It doesn't do the multiple frame thing, but it's only a 1080p panel. Your games, even if you're on slightly dated hardware, your games should probably be able to still run at 30 or higher, even at max settings in a lot of cases, at only a 1080p resolution. So when it comes to that, I'm fine with a bottom limit of 30, right? If this was a 1440p panel, then I would still be making that argument like, hey, what does it do when you're either riding 30 or you tuned your game for 35 and it dips below 30 temporarily? It's going to be really hard to hit 30 on the bottom end on a panel like this. There was a little bit of an oddity that we noted, and I'm going to have to go to the other page for this other review, but this does not look like any TN panel we have looked at. And by looked at, I mean just sit at a desk and look at the screen. It does things different than a normal TN panel does. Like a regular TN panel, if you've witnessed one, just sat in front of one, which chances are you have, it has its kind of sweet spot that if you look at it straight on, the colors look about as good as they're going to look. And then if you move your head off to the side, or if you're standing over a person's shoulder that's looking at it, or if you're looking at it from down above, like as you're going to sit at the table that the display is at, it just gets really washed out. That's what TN panels do. The viewing angles tend to be really harsh on you, and the color only looks kind of accurate when you're looking at the display head on. This panel, that angle, that optimum angle, is actually, you'd have to sit your chin on the desk and look up, like 30 degrees up at the display. That's the angle where everything looks correct on this one.
I've noticed really cheap TN panels in some laptops with that phenomenon.
Okay.
If you tilt the monitor, if you tilt the display way back and look from the bottom up,
right,
you actually get better color saturation and better contrast. And if you look at it head on, you see like like a milky sheen. Over
Yeah,
this
it makes it really milky.
stone. Yeah.
And what Nixeus did, so I'm guessing that their choice in this panel, and this is not from them, but this is just kind of like my educated guess here, is since we haven't seen panels from anybody else be able to do this range on FreeSync specifically, I'm guessing that Nixeus wanted that range. Probably that was like their high priority. And out of the handful of panels that could have done that, I think they just kind of had to settle on this one. And then once they made that choice, they did some other stuff to try to compensate for that. And what they did was the out-of-the-box gamma on this panel is 2.6, not 2.2. So if you run it at much higher gamma, that makes the contrast, but the effect of increasing the gamma number makes the contrast just like a higher contrast. So that sort of counters the effect of looking at the display at what would be the wrong angle, even though you're actually just looking at it straight ahead. And that actually gets it most of the way there. So if we fired up a game right away, that was like the first thing we did was run a game with it at its defaults out of the box. Looked pretty good. The catch was when we tried to calibrate it, and we used the recommended setting from them, which was dropping the gamma of the panel itself back down to 2.2, it actually worked out to something like 1.5 or 1.6, which is super, super washed out. The gamma setting with the default out of the box, where it's trying to shoot for 2.6, when you look at it straight on, that actually worked out to 1.9. So it's almost 2.2. It's still a little bit on the washed out side. But in either case, we were able to calibrate it, and once calibrated, it looked great. Because you're calibrating it from that direction, looking straight at the panel, and, calibration pretty much compensates for that. Our recommendation for this panel is, and actually here's the example of looking up at the display. That's with no calibration applied, everything kind of out of the box, and you have to really look up at it at that sharp angle there to even kind of get correct color reproduction. So we did a calibration of it. The calibration is actually posted in the review, so if you did happen to order one of these panels, we recommend you leave your gamma setting to on, gamma setting to off, which is that 2.6 value setting. That'll have you covered for games because color profiles don't apply to games. And we have just a round of settings for you to tweak your panel to, and then a color profile for you to download. And that should get, assuming your panel is similar to our specific panel, which they're probably going to be reasonably close, that should go a long way to helping you get the gamma looking more correct. And it'll make it a much more usable panel just for desktop use, just like when you're in Windows, because trying to do desktop type stuff, just even web browsing, with a washed out kind of display is very hard on your eyes. So this will at least bring some of that, bring the contrast back. So that aside, that was really the only ding that we had on it. Everything else is amazing. The price is awesome. This is actually there's two different models. One has kind of a cheaper stand that only tilts. Another one has the height adjust and tilt and rotate stand. And as it turned out, the monitor started going on sale for the price of what was supposed to be the MSRP of the one with the cheaper stand, but you're actually getting the better one, essentially for free. It's like kind of like they threw it in, and that price is $330. So $330 for a 24-inch gaming-ish, like mostly meant for gaming display, that goes from 30 to 144 hertz. FreeSync. That's awesome, right? That's probably the cheapest we've seen of any variable refresh rate display that's come out.
And it's about $50 or $60 cheaper than the closest G-Sync, I think.
I think it's more than that cheaper.
I think there's a sale going on right now that's skewing
okay.
it a bit.
Okay.
I think regularly it's about $100 cheaper.
Because that 1080p ASUS, or the 1080p Acer display normally goes for $500. So if it's on sale right now for a little cheaper, that's...
Yeah.
I could see that.
Yeah, there's one for something right now.
Okay.
Alan, is this the biggest range you've seen for variable refresh on FreeSync so far?
This is the biggest range for FreeSync, yes. Most of the FreeSync displays, I'm trying to think if any of them have hit 30 in the first place, because they've been 35 and 40 and like 42 and like 47. I don't think any have hit 30. So this is the first one to hit 30. The only one to come close was the ASUS, the recent ASUS FreeSync 1440p.
MG279Q.
Yeah, 279Q.
Yeah.
But that one had a limited range in both directions. It didn't go all the way to 30. It was 35. But in order for them to go to 35, they had to make some other compromises, and the top end was limited to 90 when it was in FreeSync mode. If you turn FreeSync off, it could go to 144, which was great, unless you wanted to be able to just, game and not have to turn FreeSync on or off depending on what game you were playing and how fast you wanted the display to go. You should just be able to just have FreeSync on all the time and never touch that setting and just use the panel either desktop or gaming. That's my opinion. So price, great. The color/gamma issue, pretty much fixable, but it is a ding. It is a negative, but it is a fixable negative. You still have the issue of, if you're looking at a TN panel from the side, the color is not as good as it is head-on. But because you're technically already to the side of this panel, when you calibrate it, that makes the effect much less. So that actually effectively makes the viewing angle better than any TN panel that we have looked at in the office here, which is just really weird side effect. But hey, if you can get a better viewing angle out of it on account of it, then I guess that's just a bonus. Also, it's really light. Maybe all 24-inch panels are just this light, but this one just seems really lightweight. I don't know.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to go to LANs with this thing, this would be great.
It would pack very nicely.
It would pack very nicely.
So it would take like 35 of those to be like a 15-inch CRT in terms of weight.
Probably. Yeah. It's just a very, very lightweight panel. Pulling it out of the box, I just kind of did this.
Yoink.
Yeah. Just
actually, you picked the box that I had opened earlier and asked if I took the monitor out already.
Yeah, that's how it started. And I was like, just it in the box. And there's Acer should listen to us on this part. There's no glossy anything. Not on the bezel, not the screen, not on the stand. Nothing's glossy. We don't need the Fisher-Price glossy random bits especially on the Acer. That's
From
killing
pictures, when you look at this monitor, it looks pretty cheap, but it's actually made out of a nice plastic and it's sturdy and it's all you could want from a $330 monitor.
It's probably more when it comes to the build. I would argue the build of this is better than the Acer displays that we've been kind of dinging on their builds, right? Yeah. It's just even with the really dinky stand that weighed nothing, that was just holding it at the bottom. It was still holding it reasonably firm, and the monitor wasn't jiggling around as you move the desk and stuff like that. It was just anything you could want out of that.
And while we haven't got our hands on the premium stand, it essentially looks like to me kind of the old stand from the Dell Ultra Sharp 24-inch monitors.
Yeah.
Just that bolts onto the back because it has VISA already.
I think it's a standard VISA stand.
They're OEMing VISA stands from somebody, and that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what they're doing. We probably have a stand coming.
Oh, okay, cool.
He emailed afterwards and said, "Hey, we got the stands." So we'll be able to at least throw a news post or have just a picture or two up, showing what the display looks like with the other stand. There is a stock photo from them in the article showing it, just in case you were curious.
One question I have for you.
Yeah.
You are familiar with those TN 4K panels?
Yes.
How do you compare this to those? Because those are not, again, they're atypical for TN in terms of color saturation and view angle and all that. How are they doing as compared to that?
This is very much the standard 1080p-ish kind of TN as far as the off-axis performance. We've noticed much better performance out of 4K panels because the pixels are much smaller and they did some other tweaks in there. That does not apply to this. This is the old school kind of TN. And like I said, it's not only is it the old school, but you're already viewing it off-axis and have to correct for that with calibration.
Yeah, if you buy one of these monitors, just go to the article and do the steps to apply a calibration profile, and you'll be most of the way there. It'll look fine, but just do that. Just do that for me.
That makes it passable. It actually makes it look pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Ryan even, I was like, once I got it calibrated, and Ryan looked over at it and was like, wow, that's, looks pretty good.
Without that, it can be pretty rough.
Without that, it's out of the box. To contrast that, Ryan's reaction when I put it on the desk over there and plugged it in and fired it up the first time, Ryan was immediately went into oh, like his response was, okay, let's type up that email preparing the company for bad news. Like that was the initial response, but you know, once we did what we did, it's very, very usable, very passable. You know, I would say probably you can get away with it just using it for like actual production, you know, like desktop, like not color accurate stuff, but like you can comfortably use it to do word processing and stuff without really straining your eyes.
Watch movies.
It's definitely great for movies.
Yeah.
Oh,
Would you want to watch movies or do desktop productivity without calibrating it, though, Alan?
No.
So then you've got to factor in the cost of at least $100 to $150 calorimeter just to really even use
Well, no, because I think you can get 95% of the way there just by using the calibration that we put in the article.
Oh, okay. So just follow those settings.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the case. Like, TFT Central does this a lot. They have a huge database, which we actually link to in the article, and I've submitted our calibration from this panel to their database, so hopefully they'll update that. But they do the same kind of suggestions. They're saying, hey, you know, you don't necessarily have to buy this calorimeter and do all this extra legwork. And trust me, the learning curve is kind of steep on the colorimeter thing too. Like the software and all that stuff is just kind of like really not easy. Even applying the calibration that you already have, if you downloaded it from our article, even that's not easy. But I actually link off to TFT Central's guide on how to do that because I trust their explanation even better than how good I could explain that. It's that kind of backwards and convoluted. But assuming you're using one of these calibrations, that'll get you most of the way there. The gamma difference alone is the huge thing. The fact that it's bringing the gamma back to the reasonable number, that is huge. The color was actually fine on this. The tweaks that the calibration profile make to color on this panel are very minor. So it was covering like 99.6% of the gamut, even out of the box. It's just that the gamma was so off that everything looked washed out. The colors were accurate, but they were just super pale. That was you have to think of it in a different way, right? When there's gamma, and then there's color. So your colors can be perfect, but if your gamma's off, it looks like there is no color, but there actually is. It's really weird. This panel was a learning experience for me as far as color calibration stuff.
Definitely
goes.
don't let that scare you away if you're interested in buying the panel.
Yeah, I wouldn't let it all scare you away. As long as you can click through some dialog, follow a short list of directions, click through some stuff in Windows, and apply a file that you downloaded from us. This panel will be no different, if not maybe a little bit better than your typical TN panel would have been out of the box in the first place.
Plus, it's FreeSync and it's got a huge
FreeSync,
refresh range.
huge range, very cheap.
And large tracts of land.
Just huge tracts of land. Yes.
Huge.
All right. Next up. Who did this one? Dell Venue. Oh, look, Sebastian's been busy.
Me.
Dell Venue 10 7000 series.
Yep. If you remember a while back, Ryan had done the review of the Venue 8 7000, and this is extremely similar. It's the same screen resolution, but it's at a bigger size. This is a 10.5-inch tablet. As shipped for review, it was a tablet keyboard combo. Dell sells these in both configurations. They're kind of following the Microsoft Surface business model here. You can buy their separate keyboard, which is very expensive for a keyboard accessory, in my opinion. It's like $159.
Jeez.
And it's less expensive if you buy it with the tablet. They offer the different capacities of the tablet bundled with the keyboard. So what we were sent was the 32 gigabyte model bundled with the keyboard, which retails for, $679 as reviewed. So you're already looking at something that's as expensive as a 64 gig Surface, I believe, with a type cover.
Yeah.
And you're looking at something that's as expensive as buying either the 16 gig iPad Air 2 and a deluxe keyboard cover, or even like a higher capacity iPad Air 2. So on price, they're not competing. What they think they have here is something that is going to compete on just the display quality and the functionality and the keyboard. So I looked at it from both standpoints in the review. How did it work as a tablet, which admittedly I didn't use it as a tablet very much because right out of the box this thing felt like a laptop to me. The keyboard it does not feel like a tablet keyboard. And the hinge is better than most laptops I've ever used. So when you actually connect these two together, when I read magnetic hinge, I'm thinking, oh boy, you know, it's going to be one of those floppy keyboards that sort of hangs off the bottom if you lift up the tablet. And this thing, you can hold the laptop, you can hold it as a laptop by the keyboard and the screen doesn't move around. The hinge will retain its position no matter what angle you set it to. And it's extremely strong and smooth. So that was immediately impressive. One small problem with it as a laptop is it's a little unbalanced, and it's on the small side, of course. So this is a 10.5 inch diagonal device. Very high density. It's 288 ppi. It's 2560 by 1600, so it's a little bit taller screen, which is nice when you're using it in landscape mode. But that we started to get into some of the issues with it that kind of tainted it, and I really wanted to love this thing, but there were a couple of things working against it the entire time I was reviewing it. The most glaring one for me was the operating system. Everything about this, when I took it out of the box, when I powered it up, when I was looking at the hinge and playing with the keyboard and trackpad, they were all top-notch for an Ultrabook. This would have been an outstanding Windows Ultrabook design. It's running Android. It's running the latest version of Android, and I got an OTA update right away, and I'm running 5.1. It's virtually stock Android. It's got a couple of kind of Dell apps on it, but for the most part, it's well over 90% of the way to stock. And the performance was fine, even though it's running the exact same hardware as the Venue 8. You're dealing with that same Z3580 Atom SoC, which at this screen resolution, especially using this older PowerVR graphics chip that it has, is underpowered. If you look at the benchmark pages, you're going to see underwhelming results. It's going to be at or near the bottom of most of these charts, with a few exceptions, but for the most part, over the benchmark test, it's not going to blow you away. And where I was hoping it would make up for it as far as performance goes was maybe better battery life, if you're dealing with something that doesn't perform quite as well. And the battery life wasn't really there either. The battery life was about the same as the Tegra tablet. And in its defense, I was running it at about 80% brightness for our battery test. That's where I got the 180 lux reading from my little light sensor. So when I was using it myself, I kept it at 50% and had auto brightness enabled. And the screen is so vivid that even at lower brightness settings, I had no trouble with legibility, and I was using it for productivity in Google Docs, watching Netflix videos, surfing the web, email, using the eBay and other apps that I use on Android all the time, and kind of being reminded of what using apps like that on a tablet is like, because that is the exact same app as the phone. So just some of those things, like the Google apps themselves work great on a tablet. Google's put a lot into their tablet experience to make it obviously different, better with a larger screen. But when you're using this as a laptop and you're using it with the native cursor support that's actually built into Android 5, it feels like you're using a Windows or a Chromebook laptop. And everything functions like you would imagine it would. I just instinctively started two-finger scrolling and it was working. And it's just kind of odd that I'm in Android. I'm doing all this with a mouse. But in the end, the battery life, the performance overall were underwhelming, like I said. And then in its favor, however, just outstanding hardware design and one of the most gorgeous screens I've ever seen. I didn't get a chance to see the Venue 8 in person when Ryan had the review initially, but this Venue 10, it's an organic LED screen. It's just infinite contrast, and it looks fantastic. It's pentile, so it has that really green-oriented subpixel pattern. It's RGBG, 2 greens for each blue and red. But that really only shows up when you are kind of comparing it against an IPS display, or running it, through like when I was running it with a colorimeter and some test patterns. Your eyes will naturally kind of account for the difference. The whites still look white on the screen. It almost had a cool appearance on the screen, actually, as if they were more blue. the way that they have the color profile set up out of the box, but it has extremely rich saturated colors. And if you can live with its shortcomings, if you don't mind Android as an operating system, if you can live with what were admittedly very poor cameras, it's got the interesting RealSense camera technology. It's got dual 720p cameras on the back to do 3D, kind of this 3D stereoscopic thing where you can measure distances and do some interesting things with focus after the fact, some other camera effects. But the actual 8-megapixel shooter on the back is bad. I took pictures. I put like 3 pictures in the review that I took outside on a sunny day at about 4:30 in the afternoon here, downtown at like a train station, and it is extremely washed out, even though it was extremely bright outside. So, and the webcam, I did one of the recent podcasts using that just to test out the webcam, and it was atrocious video. So it's a mixed bag. In the end, I ended up giving it a silver award just because I was so impressed by how good the hardware itself was. But that's one of those things where I kind of had a disclaimer on it. Like, you're going to need to try this out first. Make sure Android OS is for you. Don't buy it for the cameras. Don't buy it because it's going to blow you away with gaming performance or something. Buy it because you maybe were considering a Chromebook. You mostly use Chrome, Google Apps, email. There is a rich experience for you if the apps are that you like to use are represented, but it was kind of a wash whether I even gave it an award. But I really like the design, and if Dell came out tomorrow and said, hey, by the way, we doubled up the RAM that's in it, it's going to have more storage capacity, and we're putting Windows 10 on it, I would probably buy one tomorrow.
Huh. Yeah, I'd really like to see a good Windows 10 laptop on an OLED display.
I think it would look amazing.
Wouldn't we all?
Yeah.
Think about a Surface. I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen this. It was around the office for a little while before I grabbed it, but the hinge is very, very good. And I've looked at other tablets like the Surface that have a kickstand system where you kind of have to prop it up on its kickstand, and then you have to attach this keyboard that is not a rigid keyboard, just kind of lays there. And to be able to flip this thing around, it basically simulates having a 360-degree hinge, whether you have it oriented forwards or backwards on the tablet itself. And it creates a lot of versatility. I was watching Netflix movies with it kind of cradled in the keyboard as a stand, or I'd flip it around, use it as a laptop, and it was a good experience.
All right, cool. Josh, Jeremy, anything?
No.
It looks like a netbook.
That is
It
true.
really does look like a netbook
Yeah, it does
when
look
it's
like
got
a
the
netbook.
keyboard on it. But hey, there were no OLED key notebooks.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know.
Hey, it's cheaper than Google's $1,000 Chromebook. It's half the price.
That's true.
Half! All right, I'll give you that.
All right. Before we get into the news, the boss left us an ad to run since he's not here. And that ad is for VideoBlocks. So I will virtually say to the past, take it away, Ryan.
This episode of the PC Perspective Podcast is brought to you by VideoBlocks.com. Stop overpaying for stock media. That is underwhelming. VideoBlocks is an affordable, subscription-based site that gives you unlimited access to over 100,000 HD video clips, After Effects templates, and motion backgrounds. And that's a lot of video clips, if you remember in a previous episode where we found a porcupine climbing a hill. I'm sure Josh will come up with something more interesting this week. On average, VideoBlocks subscribers pay less than $1 per download over the course of a year. They even offer the same content you would find on more expensive stock sites. VideoBlocks has a great variety of time-lapse, aerials, U.S. and international locations, slow motion, nature shots, and more. They continuously add new content to the library to keep it fresh as well. Everything is 100% royalty-free, and that's nice. You can use it on private or public uses, I guess. Josh, you know more about that. Unrestricted usage rights for personal or commercial projects. That's probably wording it a little bit better. And keep what you download and maintain usage rights forever. I'm going to have Josh pick out 2 more terms that we're going to find clips for on VideoBlocks.com. Remember, a couple of weeks ago, we did find the porcupine climbing, I believe, is what we used. And this time, I'm sure it'll be more creative. I couldn't be here for the episode today, but I have all the faith in the world that Josh will be as equally PG-rated creative as he was in that instance as well. For our audience members, though, VideoBlocks is offering a free 7-day trial. If you go to videoblocks.com/promo/PCPer and sign up for your free trial today, it's videoblocks.com/promo/PCPer, and you get that free 7-day trial. We thank VideoBlocks for their support of PC Perspective. We thank Josh for this awesome clip.
Oh, well.
So would rolling fatty be
No.
PG?
No. That's not.
How about exploding orangutan?
I have to remember how to spell orangutan.
Orang-utang.
Wait, what? You're not.
Orang-utang.
Oh, orang. Oh, it's not coming up in the autocomplete.
How about
I don't think that's how you spell orangutan.
Orangutan. Orang-utan. I didn't invent the language, I just abuse it.
No results.
You know, Ryan imposing this PG rating on Josh has obviously left him speechless.
That's the problem. Yeah.
how about falling raccoon? I'm pretty sure there's going to be falling raccoon. And what is it with me and small animals doing?
I don't know.
I wasn't going to ask.
You
and
like small animals in action scenes.
either ascending or descending.
Falling.
Yes, he likes
I guess
the up and down
descending.
motion of
Yeah.
the furry animal.
There we go. Money falling.
The money shot of orangutan.
No,
Money.
not money. John Falling.
Slow motion cash falling onto iPhone 5. That's pretty reasonable, actually.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, throw
So
cash.
the iPhone
onto
brings it
Just
full
throw-
circle back to a tech podcast.
I noticed there's no cash falling onto Android phones, just the iPhones. I guess that's probably an accurate statement.
Oh.
Oh, well.
Would knuckle dragging work?
No. Not gonna-
Knuckle Dragon?
Not gonna.
We're back to the larger mammals again.
Sure, why not?
Let's see. What do they got for submarine? Let's look for submarine.
Uh-oh.
One video.
Oh, you don't want to see them?
No.
One video of a submarine. That doesn't. That's I don't know. Oh wait.
The
You
rest are
can't see it.
classified.
It's under the water.
There's market. Okay, so there's the marketplace, which is like the more videos. And oh, I see. All right. Yeah. Look at that.
So listeners at home, you have 7 days to come up with some of these incredible concepts of your own.
Yes.
Like maybe Rogering Hammerstein.
Ugh.
Okay.
Anyway.
Anyway, moving right along. Thank yous and condolences and apologies go out to VideoBlocks. We tried. News. GPU market share. All right. Sebastian, tell us about GPU market share.
There were a couple of stories. I don't remember which one contains. This might be the one that had the bigger swing. You saw about a 40% swing in the last year or so, where this year AMD has dropped down to just 18% of add-in board market share. They had previously published a report on overall GPU shipments, and that might be what we're looking at here.
So is this when was the end of this quarter? Like I'm trying
End
to
of
figure
June.
out end of June.
Yep.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out what
Now
the connection
AMD
is.
had a huge upswing last year because of the Bitcoin mining before the ASICs kind of took over.
Yeah.
Oh,
And,
I
they
see.
had a-
So yeah, and last year at this time that was still going on. You're right, because they'd hit nearly 40% at one point. They were like 30. This chart says
37.5 or something.
And this quarter, 18%. Last quarter, 22.5%. More importantly, for many of our listeners, however, Matrox has maintained a steady 0.1% year over year. So they're still right there, selling dozens of cards.
All right.
Oh no, they're big in Asia
Yeah.
Oh, really?
still.
But with this swing, in all seriousness, NVIDIA at almost 82% market share right now, and it's about a 40%
It's like
swing.
AMD is competing with Intel in graphics.
Yeah, when you looked at the prior report, which just covered all GPUs, including processor graphics, you're right. It was a lot more even, and the APU numbers, even with the APU numbers, they were still only, competing with like Intel and in that market. But in the add-in board market, they have dropped significantly, and part of that has to be, it's not like there isn't demand for their newest product, but it is extremely scarce. Trying to find an R9 Fury or Fury X in stock, and I looked earlier today, and I could find one, but you're still talking about a card for their latest generation. You're going to spend $549 and up, and a lot of the third-party sellers are gouging, of course, at this point because they're the only ones with a product to sell. And
I would interrupt with potentially this.
okay.
What if those quarter results reflected a decrease in buying because they knew that one Fury was going to be coming out to the other 300 series, and so people just kind of stopped buying them until those products released, because the R9 390 and 390X are a significant jump in terms of percentage performance from the 290, 290X of the previous generation. They've got double the memory, and then up above that, you've got Fury. So how many people were just holding off to see what was coming up? And also, how many of people just went ahead and bought the NVIDIA 900 series Maxwell that had been, it's been out for a while, but with AMD kind of being a little bit slow on the refresh and getting Fury out, how many people just got tired of waiting and, went with...
Apparently not all of them, because one of the saddest part about this whole story is that we've seen just about a 20% decrease in the entire size of the market from this time last year. Yeah, they're selling literally 81.9% of the video cards they were at this point last year, total market overall. Discrete. This does not count the APUs. This is just specifically the discrete GPUs, but the entire market has just lost 20% of their customer base.
That's kind of understandable.
Also not good.
Yeah, but how much of that was waiting for Intel to actually launch a new desktop CPU platform?
Yeah.
I imagine a lot of people still buy all the components at once and don't think about it for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And they're probably waiting for something like that to happen.
And there's those weirdos that were waiting for Windows 10 for some reason.
Losers.
Cha.
I bit the bullet last week. Ooh. Task Manager
And how
is now
did that
just another
bullet
app.
taste?
I was kind of... I realize what you're saying, Josh, but I was kind of at least hoping that they would have stayed at the 22.5% and not dropped further, but I guess that's why I was asking, like, when the quarter ended there, as trying
Well,
to...
it says it's Q2, which I imagine Q1 probably was like fiscal quarters, February, usually?
No, it's January through March, Q2, April through June.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's just
And
straight for the calendar year.
That's
Yeah.
calendar versus financial. Financial could be totally just look at NVIDIA. They're already in 2016.
Yeah.
But they're
Both AMD and NVIDIA
Financial
have different
crap, but-
ideas about financial years.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we could see a totally different story then. If with Q3 results, maybe AMD had a big upswing in July, August. And going into September, who knows?
I hope so.
Well,
they
we'll
came
know.
out with 300 series parts, and for the most part, they are improvements on the existing 200 series. And the new Fiji parts are expensive and hard to find, so we'll see.
All right. Well, speaking of AMD stuff, that would hopefully make their percentage go back up. We got some photos of the R9 Nano. Confirmed photos, not Like, what does it mean? when-
Half-Life 3 confirmed.
Yeah, that's why I was at. Well, these seem pretty legit though. With
They told
Yeah,
us
yeah.
they were real. AMD
Oh,
told
who
us
cares
Oh,
about
AMD
that? I
said
just
they
heard
were
from
real.
Ryan. He
Okay.
found Pappy Van Winkle.
so if AMD confirmed it, then we can call that confirmed.
Yeah, Ryan did confirm it with AMD. These were leaked from a Korean website. It was reported on a Czechoslovakian site that I got these from, but
It's an international affair.
Yeah, yeah. International affair. We need to send
Yes.
Bourne over there and take care of those leaks. All right. Well, looks cool. We've already kind of seen it from afar. Well, we didn't see the PCB layout before, but there it is.
It is kind of amazing how much more compact having HBM is for overall PC price, because that's a still significant power delivery system that they have, even though it's 165 watts as far as we know. But it's going to be very interesting to see its overall performance. I think did we cover that later on?
It's the next story. We can go to
Yes.
that.
yeah, they kind of flow together because there was a lot of leaks and slides floating around the last few days with Nano.
Yep. All right. So we got what it looks like, and then next up we've got how it's going to supposedly perform.
Yes.
Now I will say, based on past history, we should first say, take AMD press slides with a grain of salt when it
Never
comes to
trust
performance.
benchmarks from press slides as gospel because they're always
Especially
tilted
when
in
they
one
don't
way.
They're
specifically
always
mention what
tilted.
game or what resolution or what settings.
Yeah, that too.
I think that was Far Cry 4 at 4K, but that depends on what source you're reading. I think that's what the source that I have cited there said it was.
All right, so performance looks okay. So it's a little slower than a Fury X and a little faster than Hawaii. Makes sense. And then the performance per watt is amazing.
Yeah,
Compared
almost
to-
2x. It's
Yeah.
like 1.9x according to their slide.
All right. Well, I mean, they were talking about performance per watt a lot when they talked about this even early. So
I just can't wrap my head around how it's going to work unless this is the loudest air cooler we've ever heard. So if it ends up being a quiet air cooler and they can somehow get most of the performance of a Fury X out of something that only has a 175 watt target, that is just amazing.
Well, we also have to kind of consider process technology, the amount of transistors, and kind of the voltage power curve in terms of speed. So we don't know what the final clock speed of this is going to be, but people expect it to be significantly lower than a Fury X. But when you look at other products, when they go down to 200 megahertz, their power usage drops significantly, especially large GPUs. If you were to get the Hawaii or one of the latest, R9 390s and drop the clock speed down 200 megahertz, your power usage drops dramatically. And so I can see still having pretty good performance at 175 watt TDP with that design and not going insane with the fan speed, just because it's all just power voltage curves in regards to speed. And you hit a point, that goes damn near vertical. So if you get it well down that curve but still hit a sweet spot in terms of performance, you could potentially have nicely running card that doesn't eat up a whole lot. The Fury X, AMD needed to at least match the top end consumer card from NVIDIA, which was the 980 Ti. And so they had to adjust that curve to achieve those results to make it competitive. Unfortunately, that got to 275 watts TDP.
all right.
Clear as mud.
We shall see.
Yep.
Yes.
We'll see. We'll see soon enough. I don't think we know when we're going to see exactly, but it's got to be soon if the right things are going here. All right. Next up. Oh, this one. So we got a box in. It's actually sitting over there.
No wonder Intel processors cost so much.
You
It's
should tear down the retail packaging, seriously.
Yeah, like
well, we did tear it down. We opened it up, and then we.
no, they Intel.
Oh,
They shipped you a containment unit, and now they've shipped
Yeah,
you
yeah.
a working
You know, I
bloody
can't find
Atari
one of these
2600.
processors to buy if I wanted to, because they just can't make this packaging in any significant numbers so far.
that's true. It's got hi-fi 8-bit audio. It's hi-fi, man. So basically, Intel. This is kind of like their PR push for Skylake.
Aren't marketing budgets great?
Yeah, it's nice to be the big company and has the cool marketing budget that can just tell some creative people to go nuts, and they pretty much did. And I would say that they successfully went nuts because like this is pretty retro, what they did here. So they basically made what looks like an old school Atari, complete with wood grain, simulation wood grain, and Ryan had to, play a kind of a Simon Says thing with the Intel chime to get this thing to unlock and open up. And then inside was basically just, the Skylake CPU and an SSD 750, 400 gig model, and then they sent a motherboard and some RAM alongside of it for us to check out. So, it's pretty cool. I mean, for us, we just, we had already like looked at the hardware and stuff before, but for the more general population of people that would get excited about, this kind of a thing, especially like gamers, noticed a lot of gamer blog kind of posts that this had popped in. What would we say, Ken? That was the majority of them? Were kind of like the gamer types.
Yeah, from
Yeah.
what I remember seeing.
So it was definitely a nice gift and / publicity stunt because, now these gamers have a much better system than probably what they were using before.
Guess what? You still can't buy the i7. It sucks. Intel should be working on that.
Still can't buy it, but those people,
You still
They
can't
got
buy
'em.
it, but they'll advertise it using everyone.
yeah. I did think it was comical that the engineering sample parts.
Yeah, our
Or
review part was an
the-
engineering
yeah.
sample, but the one we got in this was...
Our review part was a retail, and then
Weird.
supposedly Intel got such a large customer order of them that they're not going to give them engineering samples. This is a big customer order that happened that caused the delay of the general population shipment to all the regular vendors where you and me and whoever else would just order one from. So I guess they probably wanted to still do this. And they're probably like, well, we got these engineering sample parts in the back. You're like, okay, send those out. It's probably what happened. Just a hunch. But, they were free to those people. But, it was cool. I really dig that kind of a PR thing, especially when you go all retro. I actually like this one better than even the last one. I think that was even cooler. Unfortunately, I think most of the people that got them might not have owned an Atari. So they might not have totally got it. But anyway. Probably never saw that particular kind of box style in person. And opened
I
it.
see.
And open it for Christmas. Like Josh did. Probably.
Yeah. We had an Atari 2600 friend that had the Magnavox up.
Oh, the Magnavox.
Wood grain was exciting back in the
Yep.
day.
Oh,
Wood grain,
God, yeah.
Wood grain was all over those things.
Yeah. Classy. It fit on top of your nice furniture piece of TV that had bookshelves on the side.
All right.
You've all seen them.
Oh, I used to have them.
Yeah.
My brother just made one for a flat screen.
All right. Last news thing. Sebastian, take it away with case news.
Phanteks
Phanteks
has announced a new version of the second edition of their Enthoo EVOLV ITX. And the big story really with the second edition is just revised styling a little bit. And what drew me to it right away was the color schemes. There is a white with a black interior, so something a little bit different. Although I have seen this before. And what I thought was really striking, a black case with a totally red interior, which looks pretty cool. And at an ITX case, this would be ideal, with the black and red like this for an AMD Nano or a Fury X build, something nice and compact with a mini ITX board. So just interesting styling. I would like to get my hands on one of these and put it through its paces and see how it performs. Phanteks does a lot of really cool things with their cases. I've done a couple of reviews of their enclosures recently, and they have nice removable radiator brackets. Everything is extremely easy to put together. They've got filters where it counts and very good quality construction. So interesting style and color schemes from Phanteks here.
I think it's supposed to be $70 and $80, depending on.
Yep. So not too expensive, really, for what it is.
Yeah, let's see. The white and black is the $10 more.
Which I found odd. I would have guessed maybe the black and red, but I'm thinking the black is probably like a powder coat and the red is an enamel. Might cost them a little bit more to do the enamel finish for the white.
Yeah, the white enamel is probably costlier to do, and have look right. White is a hard color to get right.
Yeah.
Especially
Well, we know which side of the Star Wars they're on.
Yeah,
Red and black and white. I'm telling you, these guys are Empire.
Yeah, they're favoring the Empire. Those guys. All right, so that's it for the news. I guess we'll move on to our hardware software picks of the week, which I am currently opening in the browser. Jeremy, what you got?
I got a fancy little thing here.
Uh-oh.
Don't show it.
It's from Monoprice,
Oh.
because I only cost the one price. Monoprice set Josh and I up, which is why we sound so dead sexy tonight, I tell you. It is a condenser cardioid microphone, and it is actually not that expensive, but yet this is the quality you're going to hear. So as much as I love them for sending them out to us, I also got to say, I think we sound a hell of a lot better than a $100 headset for using a $100 microphone.
That's true. It's cheaper than $100.
Yeah, the link for right now, the special is $84. I think if you buy the dual mesh screen, that's going to cost you another $15 or $20, and you'll be up to about $100. You are going to sound so much better than, and I hate to say it, but sorry Corsair, sorry Logitech, sorry Plantronics, you got nothing on this.
Yeah.
Can't beat a nice big diaphragm.
We've
Nope.
actually given Kingston a few chances too on their awesome Cloud Series headset.
You just can't make headsets sound that good.
Yeah,
No, you can't, because this thing
the
is
speakers
heavy.
sound amazing, but the mics are always just horrible.
It's tiny little mic. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
I mean, the weight of the box this thing came in, I'm thinking, why in the hell am I getting a drill from Monoprice? Because it actually is, it's not quite as heavy as a drill, but it's a couple of ounces. You're going to get so much more out of that than you are out of an entire headset, including speakers that'll weigh you a couple of ounces.
Yeah.
Does
So
it include
keep your
the
eyes out.
shock mount too?
No.
Hmm?
No
Okay.
shock
No,
mount.
that's a weird picture. That is not what we got. But that one, apparently it comes with the anti-shock.
One is.
That's USB, so it's got or is that XLR?
Yes.
Actually, yeah, that one does come with the shock
That is
mount.
USB. You can get the XLR model if you're set up that way.
It's cool though. So it's got the just direct connection in. You don't have to worry about.
Yeah, and I mean, this
Yeah.
one shipped
Yeah.
also with this, which is just a really hefty desktop
It
mount.
does ship
and
with that. Okay, cool.
That's cool.
it's padded on the bottom, so you're not going to hear anything, and it's heavy enough. If you whack it, it's not going to move much.
Trying to figure out which
That's
model.
actually a lot better than most of the desktop mic stands I've seen.
Oh God,
That's true. Yeah. Trying to
So,
figure out.
Yeah,
if,
I beat my kids really nicely before coming on here with that thing.
Oh, nice.
So they got the
And it's
bruises,
padded, so it
and
doesn't
they're not
leave
going to
marks.
do that again.
I think the model that we have here that we're showing is the XLR model, though.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
looks like it.
Oh, is that the
600.
my mistake?
800
6,000. Well, the 600, 800 is what I'm also using. I'll have to.
Yeah, there's probably some
They're
sub-bottle
somehow
number that...
yeah, they're somehow distinguishing a difference there. So just be careful
Okay.
if you're listening to this and you.
I would change it.
Well,
Look
we
it up
will
on the
try-
monoprice site. I'm sure you'll be able to find it.
Yeah.
Oh bloody hell! It's
Hey,
a wee bit more. Sorry.
As Josh said, If you whack it, it doesn't move much.
I do recommend for users that are just going to have the one microphone, definitely go for the USB model.
Yes, just to the USB.
Because you don't want to know the amount of money you have to spend to go from XLR to a PC easily and correctly and stuff. It's
Don't do that to yourself.
Yeah, just save yourself. Which reminds me, the only way that I was able to get a headset that sounded kind of decent was I had to spend like $300.
You had to buy a broadcast headset.
I had to buy a $300 broadcast headset, and then I had to buy another $100 adapter to go, because guess what? It was XLR. So I had to go from XLR to USB and spend more money. So, yeah.
No, this is a much better way to go.
Yeah, just save yourself. Get one of these things. Granted, what I was doing was like 5-6 years back. So be happy that technology has resulted in progress to give you less pain, I guess. Next up, Josh.
Me.
What's that? You got a pick.
So anyway, some weeks back, I upgraded to Win 10, and my performance in games went to crap. Apparently, it was a known bug with NVIDIA SLI that the internal page file or something like that got out of control, and you'd have increased amounts of stuttering and nastiness in your games. And so I yanked out my 970 SLIs, put in a single 290X. Everything was smoother. It was slower in the benchmarks, but my experience was, of course, smoother. Now, it seems that NVIDIA has, in fact, fixed this. It's a new driver. Those who like SLI and Windows 10, download this and see if it fixes your issues.
So did they replace, like if you just go to their site right now and you just go on their main page and try to download the driver, is this the most recent one?
No, it's not even a beta. It's a hot fix.
So you just have to know that this exists.
Yes.
For the moment, at least, until they come out with whatever their next.
Which is why it's my pick.
Yeah.
Because I want people to know this.
We need to spread the word on this as much as possible.
Because the word is the bird.
So
And now hopefully AMD will fix my portrait Eyefinity.
they have a separate
It
fix
broke again.
for notebooks?
Yep.
That's interesting. All right, cool. So yeah, NVIDIA hotfix driver. I would, if I was installing Windows 10 and I had SLI, I would definitely have that guy handy.
Don't you?
Just in case. Not at home. I'm not running Windows 10.
Oh.
I tried the early,
Yeah.
and then it pissed me off a couple times. So I went back to 8.1. I'll probably move to 10 soon though, and I will need that. Speaking of reinstall Windows, kinda, sorta, except it wouldn't apply to me because I have my own build. But if you have, say, a laptop with OEM stuff on it, you know how you get those laptops and then they have a bunch of crap on them? Somebody designed a thing called decrap, which is pretty sweet actually. And it's kind of tuned to remove all of the OEM stuff that they tend to add, all of that crap. So the idea is you fire this thing up and it gives you some kind of a laundry list of, hey, here's all the crap that I found. Would you like me to remove it all? And then it just kind of like hit go. And it just sits there and it just auto hits all the prompts for you and just rips through all of the uninstall process of all of the things until eventually, and this is an awful lot of stuff that was doing on that machine before it finally got to the point. You can actually see like the desktop icons for all of the other crap going away as well. Till eventually you end up with what ideally would be a close to clean install of Windows without having to do the full clean install of Windows. So might be handy for, it's probably quicker to run this when you're just trying to help out that person after you did that restore on their laptop. And then you want to get rid of all the stuff that you would usually do yourself. I'm sure Jeremy and Josh can relate since they've done this probably at work a lot.
I love it. It's so much fun.
So, looks cool. Looks like it would be worth a try. This was actually recommended to me by one of our readers, of which I forgot their name and don't have my email open. So, apologies. I will shout out to you next week. Last, certainly not least, Sebastian.
Just least.
No,
So,
it's not.
Lives change, and as we move forward, we don't always get to have our favorite game systems out and connected to TVs anymore, or our game collections out on display. They've been replaced by children's books and other nonsense. So I was very happy to see that Final Fantasy VII has been ported over to iOS, so I can play it on either a phone or an iPad now. It's only on iOS, it's not on Android yet. It took them forever to put Final Fantasy Tactics out on Android, and that was my pick last time I was on. But you can now play what I believe is the PC port that you can get on Steam. That translation, that version of it, is on iOS. So some of the famous, miscues with the original translation on PS1 are corrected on this version.
What?
And do you have it installed, Alan?
I do, and I was going to fire it up, but
Having a Nexus 6 and not having an iPad right now, I have not tried it out yet.
Yeah, it is very faithful to the PC version.
How many CDs is it?
The one downside I will say is this is kind of pricey for an iOS app.
Well, all Square Enix ones are. I mean, what is it, $15.99?
Yeah, $16 I think might be the highest I've seen even a Square Enix game.
Well,
but,
what's Final Fantasy VII cost on Steam?
I don't know.
$10.
Oh, is it $10?
$9.99 when it's not on sale. I think I bought mine for $5.
Yeah,
And it'd be a
see.
much more pleasant experience than playing on a touchscreen.
Yes.
I would think so.
Yeah.
That was my big question: is what are the controls like? Is it just
So-
superimpose them wherever your thumbs happen to be on the screen?
So it has an overlay, which I'm not sure if they show it in any of the screenshots. They don't, and I don't have an easy way to show it that's going to look good from here. But basically, the screen is 4:3, so you have.
Oh, okay.
So it's pillar boxed, but it has like a gradient on the pillar boxing. It's not just black, so it kind of meshes a little bit better with the game that's running in the middle there. And then they have light gray overlays of like some of the buttons for the game controllers. What would be the game controllers? What was weird was that the overlays more corresponded to like a PlayStation controller than a PC controller, because it was like L1, R1, like those buttons were there. The button that you would hit the most in the game, just like X or whatnot, just to forward through dialogues and just to get you through the engine, that's the largest button on the right side, so that was convenient. They kind of just they knew that was coming, so they just laid it out more appropriate. And then when it comes to anything that's for motion, there's not a permanent joystick thing anywhere. It's wherever you put your thumb down on the unbuttoned area of the screen and then move it. It just generates the circle right there.
That's
Okay.
always where my joystick is, where my thumb
and it does that, until you let your thumb up, and then the circle just disappears. So it's actually pretty seamless as far as that goes. Yeah, I mean, it's still, I don't think I've hesitated that long on an iOS purchase.
Oh yeah, Square stuff is super expensive. I just like the idea that as we go forward, we could get the majority of the library of some of these older games that are, you'd have to have like a PlayStation Network account and like a PlayStation Vita or a PSP Go or something to play before legally. And now you can get it on iOS, and even if it is $16, that's a lot cheaper than buying a PSP and doing a whole bunch of work to get it on there. So,
Considering what Square's output has been of recent, yeah, we could just have all of the good games. Like the GPU power in phones could very well catch up to their catalog being good.
yeah. Well, it only takes them about 5 to 7 years to put out a new Final Fantasy game. So by then, it'll just be on iPhone.
Yeah.
There will be no need for a console.
Oh, and it does iCloud saves.
Oh, that's good.
So they added an iCloud button to the thing here. Although I'm trying to figure out how to get it to let me continue. Oh, I can't continue because I didn't save my game.
Unacceptable.
I only played it for the first couple minutes the other night, and now it's doing a video that's unskippable. So, anyway.
And
There wa-
that's it.
It was kind of nostalgic though, just to be able to sit on my couch and fire up Final Fantasy VII right there on the phone. You know. It was interesting. Anyway. All right, well, I guess that wraps it. Once again, you can check out the show notes for this episode with Jeremy's corrected microphone number, which changes the last 0 to a 1.
Flip the bit.
He had to flip the bit,
Yep,
yes.
I had to flip the bit.
If you flip the bit, it just magically goes from XLR to USB. Oh, if only everything
So
else
there's
around
an
here.
adapter.
With this one trick, turn your XLR microphone into USB.
If only. I will do
You
this.
will not believe how easy it is.
I will do this to my AKG headset as soon as I get home. Show notes, pcpro.com/podcast. That's where you'll find all those corrections we were talking about. The Twitters, twitter.com/Ryan Strout, twitter.com/pcper, I'm twitter.com/Malventano. Josh is...
Josh D. Walrath.
Jeremy is...
The one and only Jeremy Hellstrom.
It's
Not too many of us.
Don't type in the one and only, though. It's just...
Oh.
It's just...
It's
Jeremy.
the _1_ only.
Yeah,
He
numerical
ran out of
one.
letters.
Yes,
after
it's the number 1 with 3 bangs.
I can
And then
actually
the
only
number
do
one.
a tweet that's about 3 characters long because of my name.
Yes. And then Sebastian.
At Sebastian Peak on Twitter.
At Sebastian Peak. And then Ken.
Ken_Addison, because I
'Cause-
waited too long to get my actual name on
Oh, see?
Twitter.
It's-
Yeah.
Oh.
You snooze, you lose, man. So there's all the Twitter infos, and this is the part where I do the closing/outro, so I will just say I'm Alan Malventano.
See you on Saturday. I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
And I'm Sebastian Peak.
Thanks for listening, guys. Good night.
Bye.